We begin at the Mishnah at the top of Daf Nun Gimel. The Mishnah following the theme of the previous Mishnayos. On the side of the Gemara, we have a topic heading, Hanoder min hadovar v'yesh motzarim sheyoitzer mehem shenoisim shem hamokar. A person vows not to benefit from a type of item, from a food item, and there are products that are made from that item that carry within them the name of the original item. Ha'im gam heim asurim, are they also prohibited? Kigon hanodir min atmorim, for example, someone vows not to consume dates. Ma dino legabi dvash dvorim, what would the law be regarding date honey? So he vowed not to consume dates. What about date honey? This honey carries with it the name date, so is that included in his vow? The Gemara, or the Mishnah at the top line of Nun Gimel, Hanoider min hatmorim muter b'dvash tmorim. A person who vowed not to partake of dates is allowed to partake of date honey. Misisvonios, a person vowed not to consume sisvonios. Sisvonios are grapes that don't ripen readily. They will stay on the vine throughout the winter, and they're used for making vinegar. So a person vowed not to consume sisvonios. Muter b'chimetz sisvonios. He is allowed to intake vinegar of sisvonios. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira oimer, kol sheshem toldosoi kruya alav, anything whose byproduct or processed product carries with it the name of the original item, v'noder himenu, and he vowed using the original name, prohibiting himself from eating it, Ozer b'yoytzei himenu, he'll be prohibited in benefiting from the derivative as well. All because the derivative carries with it the name of the original item. The Chacham say, not so. You are allowed to benefit from the derivative. Now the Chachamim here appear as what seems to be an additional opinion, but is it not so that the Chachamim are saying the same as the Tanakama? The Gemara asks, Chachamim hainu Tanakama, what do we benefit by having the closing phrase Chachamim matirin in the Mishnah when the Tanakama already said that? So the Gemara answers, Ika binayu hoda detanya. There is a point of difference between the Tanakama and the Chachamim, and it will be seen, the point of difference will be seen by learning the following Tanaic source. Klal Omar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Shimon Ozer presents a rule. Kol shedarkei le'achel v'derech ayotzei mimenu le'achel. Items that you will eat them, and you will also consume their derivatives, products made from them. Kagon, and we give you an example. Tamorim udvash tamorim. Dates. People eat dates. People consume date honey. Nodar boy, person vowed not to consume dates. Osur b'yotzei mimenu. They will not be allowed to consume date honey either. Noder miyotzei mimenu osur bo. If he vowed not to consume we'll say, date honey, he cannot consume dates. We're sticking to the text as is. The Gra comments that the text should be different, but we'll keep it to the text as it is. A second point. Kol she'ein darkoi le'achel v'derech hayotzi mimenu le'achel. Items that you would not consume the original, but only the derivative, the byproduct, you would consume. Noder bo, if a person vowed not to eat the original item, and in this case, that original item is something that is not ordinarily eaten. So you vowed not to eat the original item. Ein Ozer ela b'yotzei mimenu. As a result of that vow, the only thing that you're really prohibited from is the derivative. Your intention in making such a vow was only to prohibit the derivative, that which is eaten. At this point, we are to take note of 3 Tanaic opinions. We have the opening opinion of the Mishnah and then the closing opinion, Chachomim Matirin. We just pointed out that there is a difference between them. We read a source, but we didn't highlight what the difference is. And then we also have to take note of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So we'll now review the 3 opinions. Imagine someone swears, or he vows not to consume sisvonios. Now, sisvonios are an example of something that itself is not eaten, but its derivative, the chometz sisvonios, is consumed. So a person vowed not to consume sisvonios. The Tanakama will tell you that you're allowed to consume the chometz sisvonios, and you cannot consume the sisvonios. The Tanakama is fairly literal in its approach. What you vowed, that and only that is prohibited. The fact that the derivative carries with it as part of its name the original item, that doesn't influence the Tanakama. The Chachomim of the Mishnah, we wanted to find where is there a point of difference between the Tanakama and the Chachomim. The Chachomim adopt Reb Shimon ben Elazar's approach, and that if a person vowed not to consume sisvonios, the result is that only the byproduct is Ozer. The chometz is Ozer. The sisvonios themselves are not Ozer. The Chachomim, which, as we say, is the opinion of Shimon Elazar, there we can say utilitarian. In other words, if you vowed not to consume something that itself is not generally consumed, your intention was simply to prohibit that which you would ordinarily consume. The opinion, the third opinion, not in order of opinions, but he was the middle opinion in the Mishnah, but the additional opinion is that of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. He will tell you that if you vowed not to consume sisvonios, you cannot consume them, nor the chometz sisvonios, nor the byproduct derived from them. So there you have 3 opinions. You can see clearly a point of difference between the Tanakama and the Chachomim if you focus on that example of someone who vowed not to consume sisvonios. The Mishnah, Hanoder min hayayin, muter b'yayin tapuchim. We should glance at the side. We have a topic heading, the nosei, which reads here, Hanoder midover mesuyam. A person vowed not to consume a specific item. V'yesh dvorim achirim im shem levai. And there are other things that have an accompanying name. Now, to make things more practical, we turn to the Mishnah. Hanoder min hayayin. A person vowed not to consume wine. Muter b'yayin tapuchin. He's allowed to drink apple wine. Min hashemen. Person vowed not to consume shemen. Muter b'shemen shum shemen. Shemen implies olive oil, and hence the vow won't include sesame oil. Min hadvash, muter b'dvash tomorrow. A person vowed not to consume dvash. What does dvash imply in people's minds? Well, it's translated as honey. Let's say bees' honey. As a result, his vow does not include dvash tmorim, date honey. Min ha-chometz, muter b'chometz isvanios. Person vowed not to consume chometz. Standard chometz, you can see in the Meforshim, is made from good quality grapes. Or, let's say, more accurately, from wine that was initially good quality wine, and in the course of time, it fermented. It became fermented in the context of vinegar. Good wine that became vinegar. So, when you vowed not to consume chometz, your intention was chometz that resulted from good wine, and not vinegar made from sisvonios, which we explained in our previous shiur, are grapes that don't really, let's say, ripen in the normal way. They stay on the vine throughout the winter. So they're, let's say, poor quality grapes, from which, in fact, vinegar is made. But the vow not to partake of vinegar is a reference to, in people's minds, vinegar that comes from, whose origin is good quality wine. Mina kreishin muter bekaflotos. Here we want to run into one of our difficulties when concerning Gemara markings and the issue of translating animals and plants that we don't have necessarily a very solid tradition on what they are. So we're just going to have to mention that the kreishin, kaflutos, there are different types of vegetation. So if one vowed not to benefit, not to consume kreishin, he is allowed to consume kaflutos. Even though kaflutos are a type of kreishin, they aren't called kreishin. Mina yerek muter biyarkas hasodeh shehu shem levai. A person vowed not to consume yerek. Yerek is often translated as vegetables, but they are vegetables that one cultivates in a garden, as opposed to yerek hasodeh. These are vegetables that grow in fields, implying possibly that they are they're vegetables that grow in the wild. They're not necessarily cultivated. The Ran makes reference to Yerokos Hasodeh as a different variety of vegetables than those that are cultivated in gardens. We turn back to the text. The last point that was mentioned, that a person who vowed not to benefit, not to consume yerek, he's allowed to consume yarkus hasodeh, shu shem levai. It's not called yerek, it's called yarkus hasodeh. It's a compound or a hyphenated name. The topic heading on the side of the Gemara, the Nosei, reads, Hanoder min hashemen, person who vows not to consume oil, be'ezeh shemen ne'asar, le'ezeh hitkavein, talui al mekimei shel noder, which the oil that would be prohibited in a vow not to consume oil is really dependent on where he lives, where the noder lives. The Gemara, Tanya, hanoder min hashemen, one who vows to abstain from oil. Be'eretz Yisrael, muter b'shemen shumshin v'oser b'shemen zayis. If he is one who lives in Israel, so he is allowed to consume sesame oil, but not olive oil. So that the term oil in Israel implies olive oil. Ube Bavel, you'll find in Babylonia the opposite. Oser b'shemen shumshimin. Their common oil was sesame oil. V'muter b'shemen zayis. Shemen zayis was not common, or was not found in Bavel. Mokim shemistapkin mizeh mizeh, a place in which both are found. Oser bozeh ubozeh. So by saying I vow to abstain from oil, you're including both. More says Pshita regarding this last point. Is that not obvious? Lo tzricha, no, it needs to be spelled out. The rubo minchad mistapkin, that in the location of the third point of the source, the gimel point in that Tanaic source, is a place where the majority of people use one of the two kinds of oil. Ma'udetema, you might have thought, Ezel Basaruba, simply follow the majority. A person vowed not to consume shemen. In order to define shemen in such a place, go according to the majority. Komash Malon, what the source teaches us is Safek Isura L'chumra. When you have a doubt concerning the realm of Isur V'heter, the realm of items that are prohibited versus not prohibited in a, we'll call it in a ritual or religious context, you have to adopt the more restrictive approach. And therefore, even though the majority use one kind of oil, there are a minority of people that use the other, and maybe that was his intention. So both become prohibited. Hanoder min hayerek, a person vowed not to consume yerek, vegetables. In this section of Gemara, you'll see several categories, and on the side of the Gemara we have a nosei, a topic heading. Hanoder min hayerek, you have shalgina shel sadeh, areas cultivated, those cultivated in gardens versus those that grow without cultivation in fields, and time periods. You have b'shvius and b'shar hashanim. We'll make reference to the Shemitah year versus the other 6 years of a sabbatical cycle. A Shemitah year is characterized by the Torah prohibition of engaging in agricultural activity, in cultivation of plants. So we have a Tanaic source which begins Hanodir min hayerek, one who vowed not to partake of yerek. B'shar shnei shavua, during the, let us say the vow was made during the 6 years of the sabbatical cycle during which a person is allowed to cultivate things, and he vowed not to partake of yerek. What does his vow refer to? Also bi'arkas hagina, umutu bi'arkas sadeh. He is restricting himself from vegetables cultivated in gardens. His vow does not include the wild growing vegetables found in fields. Uveshvius, if he vowed not to consume yerek during the Shemitah year, during the year in which things are not cultivated. So what was on his mind when he said, I'm not going to partake of yerek? Ozer bi'arkas sadeh, he is prohibiting himself from the wild growing yerokos that don't need to be cultivated. Umuter bi'arkas hagina, he is allowed to consume yarkas hagina. That meaning that wasn't on his mind when he made the vow. We mentioned before, and you can see again in this case, you can see in the Ran commentary, at the very end of the Ran commentary, that the Vale there Kasuda Sha'ula Me'ilov. These are vegetables that grow on their own. So during the Shemitah year, it's only that kind of yerek that he would have had in mind. The other kind, the Yarkas Hagina, aren't found to begin with. Omer Bivo Mishum Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Loishanu, the teaching of this source that on Shemitah, one who vowed not to consume yerek is allowed to consume Yarkas Gina. This is true. Elo b'mokaim she'ein mevi'in yerek michutz la'aretz. It's true in places that there's no import of cultivated vegetables imported from outside Israel, where, of course, one is allowed to cultivate during the Shemitah. Shemitah restrictions apply only to the land of Israel. So in a place that there's no import of cultivated vegetables, we will tell you that if he vowed during the Shemitah year not to consume, he vowed during that year, he says he's not going to consume Yerokos, he is allowed to consume Yarkas Gina. But in a place that there are imported, cultivated vegetables, and it's the Shemitah year, and he is standing in Eretz Yisrael and says he's abstaining from yerek, or he's vowing not to consume yerek, not only will Yarkas Hasodeh be prohibited, but Yarkas Agina also, and that will cover those vegetables that are imported. Ketanoi. The issue concerning importing vegetables to begin with is a machlokas tanoim. The source says, Ein mevi'in yerek min chutza la'aretz la'aretz. One is not to import vegetables to begin with. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel oimer mevi'in yerek mechutza la'aretz la'aretz. And it's interesting to note the opinion that allows the importation of vegetables is Rabbi Chanan Gamliel. This was the name Rabbi Avo cited at the bottom of Omed Aleph, giving way to the possibility of vegetables in fact being imported. According to that particular shita, Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, I'm making an assumption that even in this source you see the name presented as Hananya ben Gamliel, but they're one and the same. So we would see consistency in opinion. My taima deman da'amar ein mevi'in. What is the reason for the Tanakama that says one is not to import vegetables, cultivated vegetables from outside the land of Israel? Omar Rabbi Imriya mishum gush. Gush means clumps of earth. The Rashi on the fourth line from the top says, Mishum gush shemo yesh me'ofor chutz la'aretz bikrayu. There might cling unto the roots of vegetables that one imports clods of dirt from outside the land of Israel. V'tomei mishum sofek mace. There is a general, we'll say, ruling concerning areas outside the land of Israel. The land outside of Israel is ruled as being defiled, as being tomei. And that stems from a concern that the idol worshippers don't bury all of their dead in formal cemeteries, but possibly wherever. So that because of, we'll say, the lack of diligence with regard to the treatment of the dead on the part of the idol worshippers outside the land of Israel, so all of the area outside the land of Israel is viewed as tomei mace. So that being the case, the Tanakama holds one is not to import vegetables because the vegetables imported might contain clods of dirt upon which the previous mentioned ruling applies, namely tumas mace. And we don't want to bring into the land of Israel additional sources of defilement. The Gemara continues with the new Mishnah. Min hakruv, a person vowed not to partake of, not to eat kruv. Kruv is a type of vegetation, and in vowing not to partake of kruv, also asparagus. Sounds very much like a word you use in English, a reference to a particular vegetable. As we mentioned earlier, we cannot guarantee that the English word that sounds like this is in fact what the Mishnah is referring to. For our purposes, though, asparagus is a type of kruv. Therefore, when you vowed not to consume kruv, you are thereby prohibiting asparagus as well. Min asparagus, if a person vowed not to partake of asparagus, mutter b'kruv, a person is allowed to partake of other kinds of kruv. Kruv is not a subcategory of asparagus. The opposite may be true, but not that kruv is a subcategory of asparagus. Therefore, if you vow not to consume asparagus, other kinds of kruv will be allowed. Mina grisen, also b'mikpeh, a person vowed not to consume grisen. Again, we run into the translation problem. What are grisen? So we're going to, we'll say, risk it and say grisen is a type of bean. Someone who vowed not to partake of grisen, oser b'mikpeh, mikpeh is literally it's a congealed dish, but it's a type of, I don't know if it's accurate to say a porridge, but it's made from grisen. So that one who vowed not to consume grisen cannot consume mikpeh. The Rosh, toward the end of the Rosh commentary, about 5 lines up from the end, he says, "Min grisen also b'mikpeh afilu ki noslan b'mikpeh." Even when the grisen are made into or put into the mikpeh, adayin shein grisen aleim. The name grisen remains, is still attached to it. Now, Rabbi Yossi matir. Rabbi Yossi says if you vowed not to consume grisen, you are allowed to consume mikpeh. Mina mikpeh, one who vowed not to consume mikpeh, mutter begrisen. Min ha-mikpeh, if a person vowed not to consume mikpeh, osur b'shum, he cannot consume shum. Shum is often translated as garlic, and garlic was something that was always added to mikpeh. So if a person vowed not to consume mikpeh, he is prohibiting himself from shum as well. Rabbi Yossi matir. Min hashum, a person vowed not to consume shum, mutter b'mikpeh. Shum does not include mikpeh. Mikpeh, as we saw the Tanakama will tell you, will include shum, but not the other way around. Min hu adoshim, osur ba'ashishim, Rabbi Yossi matir. This is something that we've seen before. One who vowed not to consume adoshim, so according to the Tanakama, he's not allowed to consume cakes that are made that in which you find adoshim flour. And Rabbi Yossi says the vow not to consume adoshim does not include ashishim. Min hu ashishim muter bashim, one who vowed not to consume ashishim, which is a reference to the cakes that are made using adoshim flour, is nevertheless muter ba'adoshim, can consume the original adoshim. Chita chitim she'ani toyem, if a person made a vow like that, you see the chita in the singular form, chitin in the plural form, that he's not going to consume. Osir bohen, bein kemach, bein apas. He cannot consume wheat flour nor wheat bread. Gris and shani toyem, if a person vowed like that, focusing on gris in the singular and the plural, osir bohen, bein chayin bein mevushal, he cannot eat grisen, whether they're raw or cooked. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, koinen gris o chito shani toyem, if a person makes a vow using the term gris or chita, which are both in the singular, muter lochus chayim, he's allowed to chew them raw. In other words, by saying gris or chita, that implies some food that has been cooked from them. Tanya, Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, chito shani toyem, osur lefos umuter lochus. Referring to chita in the singular and using that as his vow, he cannot consume the baked wheat that's baked into some type of cake, a baked good made from wheat, but eating lochus is to chew it raw. That is allowed. If he says chitim shani toyem osur lochus umuter lefos, a reference to chitim in the plural, that will prohibit him from chewing raw wheat grains, but allowing him to consume something baked. Chita, chitim, shani toim, here he uses both terms, the singular and the plural. Osur bein lochus bein levos, so that will prohibit him from both eating the raw, the lochus, chewing on the raw grains, and consuming baked goods made from the wheat flour. So that was section 1 of the source, focusing on wheat, in the singular and the plural, and what effects that has on the vow. And now we focus in a similar way using grease as the focus of our attention. As we said, we didn't commit ourselves to a translation of gris. It might be a reference to a type of bean. So he says, gris shani toyem, Osur levashil umutu lachus. He is prohibiting himself from cooked grisen, but allowing himself, the vow does not prohibit him from chewing raw grisen. Grisin shani toim, here he uses it in the plural, osur lochus umuter levashel. Grisin shani toim, osur bein levashel, bein lochus. Naturally, by using in your vow the singular and the plural, you are prohibiting yourself, whether it's from consuming the cooked form or chewing the raw form. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.